Proper story is supposed to start at the beginning, but it ain't so simple with this one. Mostly cause the whole premise is kinda idiotic and the beginning doesn't really add anything meaningful to it, so I guess we can just skip it. Oh, no, wait, we could go the Ubisoft route. The prologue to this story is now a paid DLC. You can't afford it and you won't actually own it anyway. Also, if you can't pay, I guess I can trade for it. Say for, I don't know, a copy of files about that famous island. You know the one. Should be easy to come by. Anyway, skipping the pointless beginning, the story now moves to a certain miserable, nondescript man working a nondescript job. Excel spreadsheets are involved, much to everyone's dismay. Still, the man does his own thing, because what else can he do? What else can any of us do? Shit's expensive these days and it's only getting worse. I'm not going to say that it's corporations' fault, but it really is corporations' fault. That's right, Neil, I'm talking to you as well. Can't even listen to a single damn song without adverts about adverts these days. What I'm saying is, eat the rich, my guys. Last I checked there was a fair bit less of them than everyone else. Okay, sorry, rant over. Possibly. Or not, maybe there will be more. But yes, the story. So the nondescript man was doing his thing until, unexpectedly, all of a sudden, everything fades to black. Almost as if he was dropkicked by someone. When he finally came to his senses, he saw it. The face, the orange hair, the manic eyes, the horse ears for some inexplicable reason. The face looked at him for a second and then said, "You. I've seen you. Let me see your face. You are the one from my dreams. Then the stars were right, and this is the day." "Look, if you want to sue me for appearing in your dreams, I really can't fault you," the man started, fully aware of his face that brought nightmares to children, but the girl in front of him cut him off. "Today is the day you become my new trainer," she said with glee, and carried the man off. He tried to protest and resist, but the girl had the strength of a literal horse, so he couldn't really stop her. If she was also the size of a literal horse, I guess you could make a pretty sweet, pretty weird and totally 100% not at all appealing fetish out of it. No one would ever do it, ever, because that would be weird. Anyway, the man eventually managed to regain enough of his senses to try a different approach. "Okay, sure, I can be your trainer if you want. But who the hell even are you?" "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself, silly me. You can call me Matikanefukukitaru," she replied. "What?" "Matikanefukukitaru." He looked at her, and she looked at him, and he looked at her, and she looked at him, and he looked at her as she was looking at him, as he was looking at her as she was looking at him, and finally he said, "I'm gonna call you Greg." "Okay," Greg said with a bright smile, one that her new trainer really couldn't do much against, and together they wandered off towards, potentially, bright future. Over the next few years, said future would take place in a racing academy, where all them young, aspiring horse girls could train in prepared environment to one day become truly professional racists. Greg seemed to know a fair few people there, and as they both arrived on the scene, she introduced her totally willing new trainer to some of her training mates. The names of which were all so complex and weird, they mostly flew right over his head. One last that did make a serious impression, though, was Kita-san Black. "All hail Kita-san Black!" Sorry about that. Every time you mention her name, the fan club shows up. Only shows how popular she was. People paid their life savings to be friends with Kita-san Black, and no wonder. Her mere presence was basically the second coming of Jesus, and those graced by her gaze were destined to rule the world. Or, well, have a slightly better chance at running in races rigged by absolutely not criminals. That was the second thing the trainer noticed when he arrived. It felt like everything in the academy was RNG. Waking up, RNG. Eating breakfast, RNG. Suddenly being found dead with multiple blunt force wounds around your body, RNG. Everything was a gamble there, and well, that really explained a whole lot about this place. Dopamine was a mistake after all. Still, they wandered around, meeting new people and preparing for first training, when a suddenly voice could be heard. "Oh, how nice it is to see you on this gloomy, rainy day. a green-dressed woman said, waving and smiling in a way that lowered temperature around her by several degrees. "But it's not raining," the trainer started, but Greg cut him off. "That's Miss Tazuna. She has a compulsion, I guess. Can't tell the truth for the life of her. Possibly trauma from her, absolutely normal past." "My past was very unremarkable indeed," Tazuna said, lying as naturally as she breathed. "I see," Trainer replied, confused. "Anyway, hello there, misinformation horse," is what he wanted to add, but his mouth snapped shut as the woman smiled at him in a way that promised swift and concentrated violence. He nodded along instead, and moved on, and eventually, after meeting and greeting everyone, they left the building and went to the dorms. But on the way, another horse girl made an appearance. She was an adorably cute one with a silly bowler hat, but the cuteness was somewhat dampened by a miserable aura around her. There was even a tiny, localized rain cloud floating directly above her head. "Why am I here?" said Rice Shower, raising her empty eyes, sapping all joy from the area around her. "Why is any of us here? Existence is nothing but meaningless misery, and we are all—" "Nice to meet you too, Rice," Greg said frantically, while pulling the trainer away. She lowered her voice conspirationally. "She'll be at it forever if we let her. Best to just leave her and return when she is in a better mood." "And how long did these depressive episodes take?" "Oh, about, I don't know, 4 years? At least I'd known her for past 4 years and she was always like this. But I'm sure a good day for Rice is just around the corner," Greg said, and Tazuna herself would be proud. Then, when they were out of hearing range, she added, "She also carries a feckin' knife around. Brings it everywhere, even to the races. Have to say though, nothing motivates you to haul ass like Miss Rice closing up on you like she's about to shank you." "Is that even allowed?" "What, are you going to try and take her knife away?" Greg asked rhetorically. "Besides, she ain't even the worst one. We have an American one here who brings 2 big guns to every race. And a revolver." The trainer wanted to ask more, but decided not to. "Not gonna lie there, Greg," he finally said. "Sounds more like you lot are less in need of a trainer and more in need of a therapist." "Oh, we had one before. Did a funny trick with a rope after Miss Rice talked to him for about a week, but I guess the director decided we don't need one anymore after that." And speaking of the director, she has made an appearance sometime later, as over the next weeks, Trainer and Greg started slowly getting used to their new daily routine. Trainer pretended he understood what his new job entailed. Greg pretended to exercise, and together, every other night, they raided local area for snacks, for the academy provided them with exactly 0 budget. They were both wondering one day just how exactly were they supposed to make a living and prepare for grueling, exhausting races solely on carrots stolen from local farmers, when a small woman suddenly appeared next to them, and the narrator decided to not even bother trying to replicate her voice, for whenever the little lady opened her mouth, she made a noise like stepping on a squeaky toy. She began chaotically talking about some big event she was organizing, which was the reason there was no budget left for anyone. You wanted to eat decent food, you had to win some damn races. How exactly were you supposed to prepare for the races on 1 lunch per month? Well, that was part of the challenge. Still, both Greg and her trainer didn't really listen to the tiny lady, for they were both far more absorbed by the presence of what could only be described as a dead cat, duct taped to her hat. Greg made a quiet gesture and snuck behind the director while her friend kept talking and reached out to touch the cat. "Lay not a finger upon my vessel nor me, unworthy horsefiend," the director said in a completely different voice as the creature on her head opened its eyes. Looking at them was like staring into a black hole. Greg jumped backwards, emitting a screech almost as high-pitched as the director. "You will forget about this, fleshlings," the cat parasite said, contorting unnaturally. Only now could Greg see that its tail was permanently submerged deep in director's neck, like a string controlling a puppet. "For if you utter one word about the matter, you shall become like her." Small and adorable?" Greg asked. "No, one of us," Cat Parasite replied, and steered the director away, back into her office no one ever dared to enter. Trainer was about to open his mouth and ask her something as she left, but her head snapped 180 degrees around like an owl's, and P decided to keep his curiosity to himself. At least now, the lack of any professionals on site made a lot more sense. Instead, he and Greg simply returned to their dorm without a word and started packing, but just as they were about to leave, the door gently opened, and Tazuna walked in with her usual uncanny valley smile. "Since you have not signed any contract, nothing bad will happen to you if you leave," she said, lying, and then walked out, leaving the doors opened, as if daring the two inside to try and run. Greg waited a few seconds, looked outside, and then came back asking, "Is it bad that there are some weird squares around our door? One saying front towards former friends?" Trainer shook his head. The Catlinger Parasite knew its game, that was for sure. The only way forward was to actually do this damn job of being a damn trainer to this damn girl, who seemed like she was at least several knives short of a drawer. So, they like usual at the academy, only now they had to leave their room through the window. They complained a bit, they argued a bit, and then they got back to work, if only because winnings from races would be the only way to afford a decent lunch more than annually. The walk, however, wasn't anything particularly complicated. Greg ran around, sometimes outside, sometimes inside, while Trainer tried to figure out how to make her run a bit better, which usually just meant running more and more. And so they did. Sometimes they were even both sober for it, though it was difficult to find Greg not jumped up on her magic mushrooms, which she absolutely insisted were necessary for her ability to predict the future and contact the gods. And I know what you're thinking, but she did actually have a divine intervention or two, because how else could you explain her suddenly becoming stronger, faster and more resilient after walking up to the statue of the goddesses one day? The fact that earlier that day one could hear words, "Guinea pig, we need to cook," around the campus surely had nothing to do with it. Surely it was divine intervention and not illegal doping. So, mostly Greg just ran, and in doing so met a whole bunch of other people from the academy, like Daiwa Scarlet, who was very popular for some reason, or a walking, talking restraining order generator. Please keep her away from me, she respects the fourth wall even less than I do. Or sometimes they met... You know, maybe we should move along. Sometimes they all ran together. More often than not, they didn't. It was surprising how often these so-called friends did everything in their power to avoid each other during training hours. At least they didn't try to sabotage each other, though usually their mutual training was less about companionship and more about the mindset along the lines of, "Oh shit, it's her, I'ma go run now to not interact with this psycho." Still, in a way, it worked. And then, finally, the day came. The glorious day when Greg put on her running clothes and stepped onto the track to race in her debut. She trained hard for this. She was ready, and then, the moment she entered the starting box, got distracted by some random thought, and didn't even notice the starting bell and her rivals rushing forward, not until her trainer bellowed at her from the stands to move her ass. And move ass Greg did, oddly enough. Despite the slow start, she bolted into second place almost immediately, except then she stayed there. You could see sweat running down her face on the cameras as her tiny little ADHD heart raced to keep her going, and everyone could see that she wasn't doing all that well. And no wonder, all the racers had people chanting their names to keep them motivated, but no one cheered for her. Mostly because not a single person could damn well pronounce her name. It was time for the trainer to step in. "Greg! Greg! Greg!" he shouted from the stands, pointing at her. People around were confused at first, but it worked eventually. Greg was a simple name, easy to chant, and so soon the entire stadium echoed with people cheering, "Greg! Greg! Greg!" She heard it. The chant filled her heart and soul, and she rushed on ahead, and just barely made it into the finish line first. There was much rejoicing and drinking, and magic mushrooms, but this time in moderation, for Greg's career has now fully begun in earnest, and it was time to get back to training as soon as possible. 'Cause sure, she won, but now she had to keep winning. And, to her own and her trainer's surprise, she did. One by one, she entered random races that popped into her head after what she called divine visions, and every time, she won. Even though usually she was only vaguely aware when she was participating. Goddesses truly did watch over Fukukitaru, and her career proceeded splendidly, despite some small setbacks in nearly every race. "Hey, trainer, you know I'm a racer, right?" she asked one day. "So, why do you keep sending me to library to read these complicated books so often?" He sighed. Greg was supposed to be in library right now, but got distracted. Again. "You know how in last race you saw this bee flying around and started after everyone else? Or the other time when you looked at that cloud that looked like a dog and I had to push you out of the starting box myself? Or... never mind, you get the picture. I'm just trying to get you to have at least some semblance of attention span," he continued, but Greg already got distracted and wandered off. And yet still, she kept winning. Still, she kept scoring firsts time after time, and eventually it started to go to her head. She went from "I will pray for better results" to "I am a golden god!" she shouted from the rooftop before another race. "I will never lose, for even divines themselves bow before me. I don't make mistakes. I'm not just like the rest of you. I'm stronger, I'm smarter, I'm better. I am better!" Her trainer tried to drag her down and quiet her down, for even her die-hard fans started to get upset from cringe, but she continued her boasting until she stepped on the track, though even then she scoffed at her rivals. And then Greg ran. Greg ran like a complete failure. She kept muttering to herself how great she was and didn't even notice that another girl passed her by and left her in the dust. She crossed the finish line second, but instead of cheers of the fans, she was booed out of the track. And only when she saw her rival on the podium, something finally clicked in her tiny brain. "Guess I'm not the golden god?" she mumbled as only trainer remained by her side. "No, you're a bit of an asshole, to be honest," he said, but patted her on the shoulder lightly for some encouragement. "Hopefully you can see it now." Yeah, I do." This defeat was more sobering than entire detox therapy. She did technically still score the second place, but no one was around to be happy about it. No one except the small director, who meandered in and smiled at them. "Congratulations on your second place," the Catlinger parasite said, and then the director smiled blankly. "You're fired." "What?" both Greg and trainer shouted. "But we just scored on the podium. The fuck you mean we're fired?" "This academy is not interested in fostering failure. I know outwardly it seems it's just a place for cute horse girls to race around in revealing outfits, but for me it's but a step on my plan. A plan to find a perfect horse, the Oberpferd. all I need is one set of perfect genes, one set of pure bloodline, and in time I shall stand at the head of an army. With a herd of purebred horse girls under my command, we shall finally cleanse the world of all the untermensche Schweine! Sounds cool, the trainer said. Maybe we can stay around and join anyway? No. As I said, this is a place for perfect purebred horse girls, and you have proven that your trainee is beneath this pure threshold, and you know what happens to horses who underperform. Now, not the horse obliterator 9000! Greg shouted in sheer terror and fled the scene, covering her head. I still didn't get paid, the trainer began, but the small director simply turned around and pointed towards something in a distance. Something that looked like a cross between a combine harvester and a tumble dryer. We also have Trainer Obliterator 9000, if you're willing to give it a go, the cat parasite said, and as if on command, the machine spat out something mangled and bloody out of its depths, something that very much could have resembled a human arm before. There were, after all, many other racers and trainers in this competition, but there was only one first place. Well, fuck, Trainer said, when they came back to his home a few days later. Their things were already kicked out from the dorms by Pferdmädchen, and since Greg had no place of her own, they decided to slum together for a while, except the lack of any actual real-world money quickly became a problem. It was time for desperate measures. It was time for Greg and a whole bunch of her mates who didn't score first to get a job. Except they were all too psychotic or schizophrenic or depressed or hyperactive, or all at once, to get any kind of sensible, stable employment, but they kinda didn't need it. For, as Trainer realized very early in his career, they were also faster, stronger and generally more resilient than regular people. And all those mental issues? Well, there was a certain line of work where they didn't really matter all that much.
Still can't believe you're the contact the trainer was talking about. I was wondering where you disappeared to after junior year. Well, you all demolished me in every damned race, so the director gave me a very simple explanation what would happen to me if I tried to stay in the academy. And I mean, hey, this is still better than modeling or posing for basement-dwelling hentai artists. Also, Greg, how the hell did you know the insurgents would be hiding in that room over there? I am a fortune teller, remember? I looked into an alternate future where we just blindly walked through this door and got absolutely ripped to shreds. Right, sure, whatever. Now be quiet. Rice, is the charge set?
The gods of death will feast tonight. The reaping of sores, whether ours or theirs, can commence, and the misery of existence, for some at least, will finally end.
Okay, next time someone less suicidal will handle explosives. Everything set? Okay, Mambo 6, going dark. Mr. Zuna, what are you doing here? I was not selling weapons to militant fanatics. Mambo unit kept firing. Holy shit, Rice went in with a knife. I didn't see that in my crystal ball. Holy shit, Rice, you okay?
The blood of the unworthy has quenched my thirst for now, and yet I am still here, so my sorrows shall continue.
Sweet. Now please stop stabbing Miss Tazuna, she's already dead. You can step out now, Commander. Area clear.
Nice. Good job, ladies. Told you they'd be great for the job, didn't I, Mambo?
Yeah, that's one hideout out of some 200, but it's still a good start. Oh, and here comes Captain Goldship to congratulate you.
Captain who? Oh, you motherfucker! You know, sometimes I miss my office job.